Welcome, everybody, to Tammy Tuesday, the podcast of life, love, and purpose. I'm happy you're here today and excited to share my guest with you and get to know her myself. Cary Ballou, she is the owner and founder of Shanti Sound, a beautiful sound healing studio, and she is a sound healing practitioner. Welcome, Cary. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, you too. So I know this has been a little while coming, and I'm glad that we were finally able to get together today. And I'm excited to learn more about what it is you do and how you got into this, because everybody has a story as to when we get into energy work. And there's usually a long road to it. But I'm anxious to hear just a little bit of background. Maybe you can share with us some of your background and what kind of led you to this path. I mean, you don't need to give me your whole life story, but maybe in a nutshell, kind of a little bit about you.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Decades of corporate America work. Grew up in a small conservative southern city. Had no idea about anything having to do with the whole world of physics, quantum physics, the universe. I was in a chronic state of stress and anxiety from childhood traumas, things like that I didn't realize had such an impact on us and our behaviors and how that all manifests in our physical lives as we get older.
Mm-hmm. Did you grow up with siblings?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a brother and a sister.
Okay.
And they're not as into this as much as I am, but
okay.
Little by little, they get more interested in it. So I moved out here 25 years ago.
Okay. What brought you to Arizona?
A change of pace.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in Virginia, and my sister was traveling around the western United States, and she landed in Scottsdale, and she called me up, and she told me it was really great, and I was waiting for the opportunity to make a change in my life and start off somewhere different, do something different than spending the rest of my life in my hometown.
Got it.
And so I moved out here, and I didn't have a job. I didn't know anybody. It really, literally was a starting over.
Yeah.
At 30 years old.
Like fresh slate altogether.
Yeah. So, and then my corporate career continued. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think a lot of people aren't maybe completely fulfilled or super happy in their jobs. Mm-hmm. You have to keep the bills paid, and you have responsibilities. There are expectations that maybe your parents put on you about a certain profession or level of education, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But as the years went on, I was more and more unfulfilled in my work. I had a lot of stress and anxiety. I didn't have a lot of peace in my life. And so about 7 years ago, I was visiting a girlfriend of mine in California. And she had gone through a really tough healing journey and was doing so much better. And we were just talking about, what did you do? And what are the tools that you had? Mm-hmm. And she asked me if I'd ever had a sound bath before.
You're probably like, what's that?
Yeah, I was. But I was willing to try anything because I really was at a place in my life where I was searching for something.
Right.
And I didn't know what that something was, but I needed something. Mm-hmm. I needed something to just reclaim some kind of peace, calm.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten what that was like.
Yeah.
And so I was willing to try anything, and I did not know how to meditate. I'd never meditated before. I wasn't aware of Eastern philosophy, Eastern medicine. I probably hadn't even had acupuncture at that point. Mm-hmm. So I came back to Scottsdale, and eventually, a few weeks after that conversation, there was a class that appeared on the schedule one Sunday, and it said gong meditation. And I'm like, that's got to be what it is. I'm going to go try this. And
did that somehow, like, when you saw it, was it just like a knowing, or were you just like, that just sounds right, that feels right, I'm going?
She had explained to me a little bit about what it was.
Okay.
And it had stayed with me in the back of my mind because it was a suggestion that I wanted to move forward with.
Right.
I wanted to follow through with that, whatever it was.
Okay.
And when that class appeared, I thought, that's got to be what it is, or that's got to be similar to it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try this out.
Yeah.
And it's at the yoga studio, and it was easy. So I went and I laid down, because all you have to do is just lie down, And I'm thinking, how am I going to get through this for a whole hour? I don't know how to meditate. My mind is always racing and thinking and anticipating what the next thing is that I have to do, or dreading going to work on Monday.
Right.
But basically, that's the moment that I considered, before sound healing and after. I sat there afterwards. It was an hour later, and I had such an experience and such a transformation and such a change in my mental state that it took me a little while to process what had just happened.
Tell us a little bit about what you experienced. If you can remember what you were feeling, what was happening, kind of go into that, because that's obviously very meaningful to your shift.
Yes. Well, first of all, I noticed after the session that the areas that I had chronic pain, I could not feel that pain anymore. Another thing that I remember and will always remember, because it still appears today whenever I go into meditation, is I saw this purple swirling light with my eyes closed. And I felt physical sensations. I felt a feeling of floating, levitation almost. I went somewhere, which I did not understand was the meditative state until later on. That feeling that people describe of I was here, but I wasn't here. And I felt so calm and peaceful afterward that was the moment that I realized that I didn't know how long it had been since I'd felt that way, and how long I'd been in a chronic state of stress, and how it becomes your normal and you don't realize how dysregulated your nervous system is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that dysregulated nervous system is where the dysfunction of all the other systems in the body comes from,
Definitely.
So I didn't know what I was looking for when I went into that experience, and afterwards, that I can say was the beginning of a complete life transformation.
So would you say that, because everybody has that moment where all of a sudden they have a level of wake up and it's like, oh my gosh, there's more here than I thought. Was that moment for you?
It was that moment. I felt like that for the rest of the day. I was blown away by how I floated through the rest of that day. And I remember sitting there saying to myself, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing, but this is going to be my new thing. And I remember it so clearly in my mind. And then I thought, I've got to learn everything there is to know about this. And then a series of, how kind of those tower moments in your life happen, and a series of really devastating events happen, and you're catapulted out of the career. Maybe you were hanging on to it because you didn't know anything different, and it was a crutch or an excuse or a place to be, or
security blanket.
Yeah, or this is my identity and I don't know what my identity is without this. But I found myself separated from the construction industry out after many years.
Is that what you were in, construction?
I was, yeah. The last few years of my corporate career were in the construction industry, and that's when I knew that I really needed something, and that's when I knew that I really needed help, because it's a very stressful, cutthroat industry. Nobody's ever happy. The competition is crazy. And so that was the moment. That was the moment. And so I wasn't working for a while, and
Well, let me stop you for a second.
Yeah.
So in that phase, because this is a phase, it doesn't just happen overnight. It's like an evolution, right? So as this was starting to happen and you went back to your work and you're like, I don't belong here anymore, because that's usually what happens. You start to feel out of place and like it's not syncing anymore. And you already sounds like you were having a sense of that already, but this kind of shook it into more view for you, more awareness.
I was at that job for a while longer.
Yeah.
And then I got fired.
Oh,
a few months
interesting.
later, I was going to sound baths every weekend. Every chance I got, I was going. And they were helping me with my mental state, and they were helping me with chronic pain, and they were helping me with being able to regain some calm and peace before going back to work. But there were a series of personal events that happened in my life and in my relationship that catapulted me out of the job. And I didn't work for a while, and I didn't need to. I was in a place where I didn't need to. I could take some time off, and I took the opportunity to dive into sound healing school.
Wow.
I found a program online one day, and this is in 2019. I haven't had a full-blown spiritual awakening yet. That was going to happen the next year.
Okay.
And even though I wasn't working, I chose a very highly accredited academy out of England, mostly online, and then they have in-person workshops that you can attend anywhere in the United States that they were having them. So I went to a 5-day workshop.
What was the name of the institution?
It's called Sound Healing Academy International.
Okay.
And so I graduated with a double certification to do group sound healings, because the way I felt about it was, if this can help me and do for me what it's doing for me and improving so many different facets of my life, just from a slowly being able to become more of the observer of my life rather than reacting to everything, and getting the stress under control, that I wanted to share it with everybody. I was like, you should come with me. I would bring people, I'd be like, you got to try this, especially if they were suffering from illnesses or whatever the case was. I was trying to get everybody to come with me.
Isn't it so interesting when you get a taste of something that's feeding your soul and you're like, oh my gosh, do you guys know about this? Like, you just want everyone you want everybody to feel the way you're feeling and experience what you're experiencing. How was that met with people that you knew in your inner circle?
Some of my good friends would try it, like they'd call it the gong thing. I'm like, just come with me to the gong thing. That's fine. You don't have to call it meditation. You don't have to call it sound healing or sound bath. Just come with me to the gong thing or whatever that is for you.
Right.
But these were people who were suffering from illnesses and other people who had stress going on like me. And I'm like, you got to try this,
Yeah.
Because that was, for me then, everybody has to know about it. That translated to today, everybody needs to know about it, and why I graduated from school, and why I started doing this around town, and why I eventually opened Shanti, because I was not finding a place around here where you could sign up for a weekly sound bath.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that accessible. I wasn't by means the only person doing it, but they weren't regularly offered. There wasn't a place where you could find
a place to go.
There wasn't a place where you could go consistently every week. So I thought that was needed. There also wasn't anything in downtown Scottsdale. There were, places in North Scottsdale and in Phoenix, but they were more special events. And when I began learning about this and studying it and understanding that it's the most ancient form of medicine that exists, and this is all about the physics of healing the body, because everything in our universe is energy, frequency, and vibration, and so are we. And the root cause of why we get sick, a very important and overlooked root cause of why we have disorder in the body, is that we have vibrations that have gone out of tune. We've lost resonance in different parts of the mind and body. And then all of these books I read and scientific experiments that I would watch and read and absorb and share with people and add to my ongoing education about it, it just continued to fascinate me. And then as I dove into it, as it consumed me, I guess you'd say, then I started being approached by the most interesting people that would just appear in my life. And they'd start telling me things about myself, and quite a few people with very extraordinary psychic abilities would appear in my life. And then I started going into the deep dives of my own healing in all of these different and alternative ways that I'd never learned about or known anything about growing up, like Kundalini activation and shamanic healing and doing Reiki sessions and doing past life regression, some plant medicine, a little bit, not a lot. That hasn't been an emphasis, but certainly I did some of that too. And I started seeing things and remembering things and having I suppose you could call it a bit of a psychic emergence. But everything started changing in my life when I began receiving and working with sound. And like other people, it has brought me back and helped me discover who I truly am and why I came here.
Isn't that what's so fascinating? Is because as soon as you have a new awareness around the things that you're being pulled to, they're like calling you, yeah. And you step into them, all of a sudden a path ignites, people come, things start happening, a whole evolution starts to envelop you. Yeah. I mean, you really just sort of, you can't not feel it, you can't not experience it. And it's like, it's magnetism. I mean, it's incredible how it works. And I love that you said that I started to remember, because that's really what is happening. Yeah. We're just remembering who we are and what we're here to do, because it's not what we do, it's who we are. Mm-hmm. It's just who we are. It is. So when you step, I'm getting goosebumps. I always say that because I get a lot of body activations and confirmations when I talk. But I love hearing that, because I think, and I love also, you did such a beautiful job of explaining that, because I've spoken with a lot of people who facilitate sound healing, and you explained that really, really well about how, because we are just vibration. Everything in the universe is vibration and frequency. And it's like imagining a tuning fork, and we're out of tune because of different things that have happened in our lives and where we are and our energy. And if we can come back to tune, all of a sudden the things that were out of whack become aligned.
100%.
And that was just a really beautiful way to explain that. So thank you for that, because I really love the way you said that.
I've done a lot of extensive reading, watching documentaries. You probably know who Dolores Cannon is. Yeah. So I've probably read 14 of Dolores Cannon's books. Of course, I've discovered Joe Dispenza and
wonderful.
Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden. And I'm a regular watcher of Gaia.com shows on that internet television channel.
Yeah.
And, when I was growing up, I mean, it's so silly to say, we had one very tiny, small physics class in high school. Mm-hmm. And really, we thought, oh, that's for the super smart girls. Like, we were already programmed into thinking, I'm like, I barely passed chemistry. Physics? Are you kidding me? I'm not even going to try it.
Right.
But there's a whole world, a whole universe of knowledge out there that I didn't realize existed. And I'm insatiably curious now, from now on. As soon as I discovered it, I couldn't get enough of it. And that is, we live in a vibrational universe. Everything around us, that's the language of physics.
Exactly.
Everything in the universe is energy. Yeah. Which means that we are made up entirely of energy, and everything from the head to toe, from the brain chambers. And this is how I explain it before I go into sessions with people who have never
experience or understand.
Mm-hmm. I want to give them a little bit of a scientific background, because they might be a little skeptical, or they might be a little nervous, or might have been, just desperately searching for something like I was,
right,
and willing to try anything. Mm-hmm. And I want to make them not only feel comfortable, but to let them know a little bit about the science behind this.
Right.
So
it helps people that have more of an analytical mind before they become a little more open to what really is possible, because everything is. And it helps people from a scientific perspective, because a lot of people coming from that need proof or understanding around the comfort level to dive into something like that. So I think it's really important to do that. I'm sure that's why people probably resonate with you, because people that are not just gravitated to it, but they're curious, or whatever the thing is that gets them in the door. Mm-hmm. They're not sure why. And then you say, well, hey, listen, this is kind of the nuts and bolts. Mm-hmm. So you have a better understanding. And I'm sure that puts people at ease.
It was important to me. If I was going to make a huge shift in my life and go to work for myself, I mean, years ago I was like, I never thought I would have ever even been confident enough to run my own business, and what in the world would I do?
Right.
I'd had a job somewhere else for so long, but if I was going to make this change, and if I was going to commit to this, which there was no going back, I was committed, then I needed to be as credible, let's just say, as I was when I was explaining what we're going to do this district-wide analysis on the life cycle and expected remaining life cycle of all the components in these buildings that we're going to analyze for you to put together a construction plan, you know? So I wanted to be able to be credible, and because you don't want to go into this and not know what you're talking about.
Right.
And I've had a lot of positive feedback. Thank you for saying what you said, because I've had a lot of positive feedback from other people too about, okay, you make it really understandable.
Right.
And now I get why I was feeling these strange tingling things, and you know, it made a little bit more sense, because yes, there's going to be some skepticism.
Right.
You know,
of course.
This is very well known in the Eastern medicine world, you know.
Well, and it's a universal language, period. It's
is.
what we are, but it's hard for us to remember that. It takes a little bit of
especially
wake up
on this side of the world.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Definitely Western versus Eastern it's come a long way, but it's still got a long way to go.
Right. Right. There are emotion meridians in the body that are well known by acupuncturists. We have an entire electromagnetic field, because all the human body is basically a walking, talking power plant.
Right.
You know, we are made of light particles and sound particles, and the stimulus of sound ignites all those processes in the body. It powers the water, that powers the electricity, that makes all of the parts of the body function.
Yeah. Power plant. I love that. That's good.
And we have an electromagnetic field, and we can, you know, good vibes, bad vibes. You can pick up on energy coming from other people. I explain it that we're always, as energetic beings, absorbing everything around us. We're absorbing cell tower radiation. We're absorbing the noise and the fear mongering and coming out of the TV, out of the radio, you know, in your car. You're absorbing environmental toxins. You're also absorbing energy from other people.
Right.
You know, toxic relationship. It's a very real thing.
Oh, yeah,
People
absolutely.
can get sick from too much toxicity from the people that they spend too much time with.
Right.
People have gotten sick from a job that they shouldn't have been in, you
Right.
know, because those are the energetics behind why certain people get disorder in their body. But it does come down to vibration, and this type of energy medicine is going to correct and recalibrate vibrations in the mind and body that have gone out of tune, because the body's a self-healing organism. When it comes into contact with the frequencies that it recognizes and needs, it's going to start an automatic synchronization process with those frequencies, and that's a law of physics called sympathetic resonance. So it's a measurable, predictable form of energy medicine. It's just not something that everybody's talking about yet, but I really do believe that
It's coming online.
Yeah, as people's minds start to expand and change, you know, the system that they were going to for help isn't working. They're looking for different answers. That's what my mission is about, to teach everyone about the power of sound healing. And Shanti Sound is also not only a place where you can receive vibrational medicine or vibration therapy, but it's also a place where you can learn more about breath work, about Reiki, about all different types of healing modalities that are true and have always been true. We just didn't know about them. And it's not hard to heal yourself once you have the right tools and you can start to do things a different way.
Don't you find it fascinating how powerful we are as energy, and how we can truly recalibrate ourselves and heal ourselves? It blows my mind how, excuse me, how, I mean, because obviously before I knew what I know, now I can't unknow it, just like you. But before you know what you know and what you understand and feel what you do, it's almost unfathomable to imagine that really is possible. But that's really all there is. And that's what's so fascinating, because the more deeper understanding you have, and it's I love what you said too, because it's not just about, like, feel like there's a big difference between knowledge and wisdom. And knowledge is, yes, you're absorbing and taking in the information and learning and watching and understanding and teaching yourself, if you will. But then there's a big difference from when you start implementing it and your life changes because you've implemented what you've learned. There's just no comparison. Knowledge is one thing, but wisdom is completely different.
Everything has changed.
Yeah.
Everything has changed. And exactly, once this door opens, you can't ever go back to thinking and acting and living the way that you did before. And what a tremendous relief it was, because I mean, there were times in my life where people would say, well, what would you do if you could do anything you wanted? And I didn't know the answer to that question, which would make me even more depressed. I'm like, what? I don't even know what I would do if I could do anything I wanted.
That's actually really common. People don't know what they would do if they could do anything they wanted. They just don't.
Yeah, because we're so trapped in a repetitive cycle of conditioned, programmed, learned forms of behavior.
Right.
You know, have you heard before that the first 7 years of your life you're in the meditative state, you're in the theta brainwave state, so you're merely absorbing
everything around you.
Everything around you. A lot
your
of
societal, your family, all of those principles are.
Yeah, right. That's where the programming comes in, because you're born with unlimited, infinite potential, and with all of the remembering already there. And then we are conditioned and programmed and shamed and blamed and all of those things that happen, that becomes what you're molded into. Those become it's been said that you were taught those things before you knew what was right and what was wrong.
Right.
So that becomes learned behavior, and it becomes false truth.
Well, and basically how you live your life through that information, through that teaching.
Yeah. And so I always had questions about religion. I had,
Did you have a religious background?
Not especially, but we were raised in the Episcopalian church, and I went to a private Episcopalian school, and I mean, you didn't question it. You learned about. You went to Sunday school.
Right.
You just were bumping along, growing up in the society that you were born into, and the cultural conditioning that you were born into.
Right.
And being like everybody else, and for a lot of children, not being like everybody else was an offense.
Right.
Was a punishable offense.
Exactly.
And
it was wrong.
Right, because you weren't behaving. Yeah.
So, as a child, did you have any? Because a lot of people that end up in this type of work, a lot of people I find had remembrances of when they were small, when they were young, of awarenesses that they kind of shoved down. Did you have anything like that when you were young? Do you remember anything like that when you were young?
I was really curious about the whole world around me, and I questioned a lot. And I just remember looking at pictures of me, when I was a little tiny girl, even before I was old enough to start school.
Yeah.
And remembering, what potential I had.
Huh.
And then the family dynamics changed that over time. We had an unstable household. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom was a very successful real estate agent. So there wasn't a lot of availability. They weren't available. Sometimes love wasn't unconditional.
Right.
We had to grow up, at least for me, I felt like I had to grow up a little faster.
Where are you in the order of siblings?
Middle,
okay.
Yeah. But my brother is 10 years older than me.
Okay.
So by the time I was 6, he was graduating from high school.
Right.
And my sister is 18 months younger than me.
Oh, so you're very close.
Yeah.
In age.
Yeah. And she had she was really sick. She had asthma and stuff going on when she was a baby. So I think that there was a lot of attention that I didn't get, just because you have to make sure that the baby's going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, middle's a tough position anyway.
It's a tough position anyway. Yeah. But I remember, I don't remember necessarily seeing spirits or having conversations, or certainly imaginary friends.
Yeah.
There were a few instances that I can remember that I felt like somebody was there with me, or speaking to me, but it's not something that I've experienced my whole life.
Right.
it's definitely online now.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely online now, and
Yeah.
and I continue to do energy work on
Yeah.
my own, and to deepen my, keep unlocking my intuitive abilities, because I want that to enhance my work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a huge piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just was curious because sometimes people have more of that when they were young, and then they again, most people are told to shut it down because that's doesn't belong here and it's different and that's weird.
Yeah,
And
and there are people who get so frightened by it, like adult girlfriends of mine that I talk to now who are highly intuitive, but they shut it down for a long time because they were afraid of it,
right.
or they had to hide it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one or the other. Either it's a fear-based thing because they're scared, or they are forced to ignore that, put it away.
Yeah.
So, where do you see yourself going from here? Because once you find out or discover or remember, rather, because I think we all have several purposes, but when you start to discover your path to purpose, where do you see yourself going? And I know it's impossible to know and say, but I'm just curious what your intuition tells you about that, because you've clearly chosen a path of change and opening up and helping people explore this. Do you see that going anywhere soon? Are you good where you're at? Do you see this growing? Do you see yourself training? What does that maybe look like for you? Any idea?
The path is unfolding. I have every intention of keeping the business growing and expanding it here in Arizona. I'll be going back to the East Coast to see some friends in my hometown in November, because by the way, Sound Healing Academy International has in-person workshops all over the United States, all over England, Australia, other countries, and I partnered with them when I was opening Shanti at the beginning of 2022, and I said, hey, you're not having any workshops here in the Southwest, and you should have some workshops here. So
are you going to have workshops at your place now?
They're on a regular basis. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Every year, a few times a year, there's a trainer that comes into town. So that's the November 8th weekend. So my studio is rented out all weekend. I went back to see some friends in the summertime. And they said, when are you going to come and do this for us? Because they've seen my social media for years. I mean, they've seen what I've been doing. And there's been, some people are interested in it. Some people are, don't even ask me about it.
Right.
But I think that probably word is starting to spread about energy medicine.
Yeah.
And
so they're like,
yeah,
that's right. What are you doing?
Yeah. Now they're paying attention.
Yeah.
And they said, when are you going to come back here and do this for us? And then I got back here and I'm like, well, I could go back in November because I can't work in the studio all weekend. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go back and introduce them to this. I have 7 classes lined up in 2 different places, and it's 3 weeks out, and there are people signed up for all 7 sessions already. So they're excited. This is, you probably have heard, when you talk about this with other people. I mean, I see people in my studio all the time from out of state, and they say, and they plan in advance. I mean, they sign up before they get to town.
Sure.
And they're like, we don't have anything like this here.
Yeah.
So I say, well, maybe you're the one that needs to bring it to your community.
Right.
You can learn this. If I
know.
can do it, anybody can do it. Mm-hmm. But where do I see this going? I see more trainings in not only sound healing, but different types of energy work. There'll be a workshop for Reiki Level 1 in December.
Cool.
I'm going to continue to expand my schedule so that sound healings are more accessible. I always have collaborative events with people in collaborative other sound instruments, like a Native American flute sound collaboration. I have a harmonic resonance sound journey with my friend Stephanie, who channels light language and is very, very aware of her celestial past lives and such. A harp event will be in January, a collaborative,
nice.
Sound healing and harp. Breathwork, there's always collaborative events with different breathwork practitioners here in town. I have special guests that come into town that tour around the world, Buddhist monks. I mean, we've had energy healings and speakings and teachings from Buddhist monks that have come here from different parts of the world. So the idea is to not only be in Arizona, but to expand hopefully into other markets, and to continue to help people educate themselves who live in other markets, so that we can really expand this and make this. I see it being a mainstream form of wellness.
Yeah.
In the next few years.
Yeah.
And breath work, it's huge these days.
It is huge.
Nobody was really talking about it a few years ago. It was as new in the mainstream consciousness as sound healing was. But now everybody's doing breath work, and it really started with like Wim Hof.
Yep.
They're like the crazy guy who's doing the ice bath plunges,
Yep.
and climbed Mount Everest with no protective gear on and, practically no clothes. And,
I know.
He used breath work and meditation to summit Mount Everest. And so, the whole mind over matter, and you are unlimited, and you are infinite potential, and the whole creator mindset is so fascinating and so wonderful, and has happened in my life and continues to.
Yeah.
That I'll continue to play my part in making this easy and accessible and understandable and hopefully life-changing, like it was for me, for as many people as I can.
Right, exactly. So at Shanti Sound, do you have space for practitioners to come and utilize the space for their practices, or what's the setup for that?
Yeah, it's a 1,200 square foot studio, and I have mats and blankets and the bolster pillows.
It's an open studio, so there's no separate rooms. It's just one open studio.
I have a small office, and I have a small room with a massage table in there for individual therapies. But really, when I do one-to-one work or small groups or couples, I'm in the main studio.
Yeah.
Because I have probably 26 bowls on the floor and 2 gongs, and I have a whole array. I know, and the collection keeps growing.
Well, they're your babies. I understand how those bowls work. I'm not in sound healing energy work myself, but I know a lot of people that are, and they are living, breathing entities. Those bowls, they are alive.
Yeah, they're very dear to me. I'm not so custodial about them that I say, oh no, you can't use my bowls and I are one.
Right. Yeah. But you respect, but there's a level of respect in what they are and what they do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, they are medical instruments.
Yes.
The didgeridoo in Aboriginal Australia thousands of years ago was not as much of a musical instrument as a medical instrument. I mean, these Tibetan bowls that I play, these are thousands of years old.
Right.
They're chanted into when they're made in the Far East. There are monks literally chanting prayers and positive vibrations into the bowls during the manufacturing process.
Where have you gotten your bowls?
I've gotten them from Amazon. I've gotten them from high-end dealers. It depends upon what I'm looking for.
Right.
I don't believe that you have to spend a ton of money to create a deeply healing experience. Some of those bowls, you've seen them. I mean, they are inlaid with crystals. They are made of, say, rose quartz or amethyst or other semi-precious stones, and those are fantastic. But I do a lot of off-site work. I go to resorts. I go to private events. I go to corporate wellness events. And I don't want to be transporting $1,200 a piece bowls in and out of my car all the time.
Yeah.
They're wonderful.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a few of them someday. But I believe that it's the level of training and how well you know what you're doing and how to combine the frequencies together. And all of what I do is intuitive now. I don't really plan the experience anymore. I just want to make it as immersive and meditative as I can. And the vibrations are doing the rest. I'm merely transmitting the signals.
Right, exactly.
And that's what we talked about before we went on air here. I don't call myself a sound healer because the body is a self-healing organism. The body is always in the process of trying to heal itself, and we're merely facilitating that process, so that we can create an environment where the person is going to be in an activated self-healing space. And I'm so grateful to know what I'm doing with my life now, and I'm so grateful for it and how it's completely changed every aspect of my life and my behavior and how I interact with people. And if it can do what it did for me, then everybody needs to know about this.
Oh, yeah. So to people listening, if you could give them one bit of advice for their own life and how they could potentially use this as a tool for them in their healing journey, what would you recommend to them? What would your bit of advice be, speaking to yourself back before this happened to you? What would be that a piece of advice that somebody might take away and say, okay, that hits. I get that.
I will go back to how easy this is. Okay? Because many people don't start something in order to better their lives or start a healing journey because they say, I don't have time for that, or, I don't understand enough about that. You don't have to do anything. When you go to a sound bath somewhere, whether it's with me or somebody else, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to look at anyone. You don't have to share with anyone. You don't have to do yoga. You don't have to do breath work. You don't have to pay a copayment. You don't have to do anything but lie there.
Yeah.
That's been my point from the beginning with this. I'm like, is there any easier way to enhance your wellness program and to add something so powerful to your wellness program that you literally don't have to do anything but show up and sit down or lie down and just receive?
Yeah, there's no excuses for that. I mean, come on.
There's no excuses for that. And that's what the whole point was. Make it inexpensive and accessible. Yeah. Because it couldn't be any easier.
Right.
All you have, how they say about working out, 90% is getting there.
Show up.
Right. Well,
just show up and lay down.
That's a whole different thing when you're going to the gym.
Right.
Or you're going to a yoga class like Bikram or something.
Yeah.
You got to work yourself up for that. You just got to get in the car and go do it without thinking about it, with some forms of exercise, or running 5 miles, which I probably will never do in my life. If I haven't done that by now, I'm never going to do it. Or hiking Camelback. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
A public group sound healing session at my studio is $29 or less.
Yeah,
all you have to do
show up.
Is show up.
Try it. Well, this is what I always say too when we have these conversations about all different things. And my overall message is to people is, because this podcast is really about pouring into yourself and choosing to love yourself, and take that time to do that, because that is part of your healing purpose. That's how it works. Once you do that, you begin to heal automatically. So by choosing to show up to do something that is so quite literally simple, you're saying yes to yourself. And that's what's so amazing, is the second people find that thing, whatever that thing is for them, whether it's a sound bath or their first meditation or whatever it is, some sort of zing that suddenly happens, and they can't deny it, that something is different in them, and they cannot not know that now. Just try it. So this is a very simple way, because there's so many people that I think listen to this that they're intrigued, but it hasn't happened to me yet, and I don't know what that looks like. It's well, just try whatever resonates, and you might be surprised at what happens. It might suddenly spin into something much bigger than you ever anticipated, in a beautiful way, in an easy way, a natural way.
Yeah.
A natural way. It's not forced. It's just, it unfolds.
If for no other reason, if somebody needs a reason to go do it, it's stress relief.
How long is the session?
1 hour.
For an hour. Take an hour to go and just lay down and take a nap.
Mm-hmm. And the feedback that I have gotten, for anybody out there listening, I have heard everything. I have heard I fell asleep. I have heard all things in between, up to and including I went into a past lifetime.
Right.
And that's not to scare people.
No, I know.
Because we never know what's going to happen when the subconscious mind opens. If you fall asleep, you're still getting all the benefits. It's just what you needed.
Exactly. Yep.
And
you don't get what you're not ready for anyway.
You don't. You don't. But I think everyone is in a heightened state of stress and uncertainty. There are rapidly changing times.
That's for sure.
This is the greatest show in the universe for those of us who know what that means.
Yep.
We are moving into a brand new way of existing here on planet Earth.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very scary for some people who don't know the astrology behind that,
Yeah.
and how this was predicted for thousands and thousands of years. But that's why I think that these modalities are emerging into the public's consciousness so much more rapidly now, because this is the future of medicine. It always was.
Right. We're just now remembering
We're just now remembering it. Yeah.
and putting it to practice.
But that's my advice. It's so easy. Go in there and lie down and don't do anything.
Right.
If for no other reason, go for stress relief.
Right.
Go because you can't find a way to turn off your brain. And something extraordinary might happen.
Well, and I was going to say, too, if you're here locally, of course, go visit Cary at Shanti Sound, because that's a perfect studio. It's inexpensive and it's local, and I highly encourage it. You have the most beautiful, soft, loving energy that
Thank you.
it's hard not to feel welcome around you. And so there's that. But even if you're not local or wherever you are, people have heard, it is becoming more mainstream. You have heard the term sound bath. If you're listening to this podcast, you've certainly heard that term. But maybe it's through your corporate group, maybe it's through friends, or there's a retreat or something like that. And if you have the opportunity and you have not done that yet, do it. Try it. Because like we said, it's so simple, but it can be absolutely life-changing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is the most ancient form of medicine. It will literally go in and start to fix everything that's dysfunctional. And if you can get the nervous system regulated, then all the other body processes are going to start to regulate.
Yeah.
And so many people have nervous system dysfunction. That chronic stress, that nervous system dysfunction is
it's killing us.
it's what's killing people. And there is a way to turn it off, and there are options. And this is a very easy option. I've had a lot of people tell me that their therapist told them to come in and supplement sound healing with their mental health and
That's great.
wellness
I love that there's
practice.
a convergence of that. That's so big.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it's just it's so easy. It's so powerful. This is how it was done thousands of years ago.
Right.
And it's the future of medicine will be music and sound. And that's been said by Tesla. That's been said by Edgar Cayce. This has been known for hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because in my heart energy sessions that I do, healing sessions that I do, I incorporate music, because music is, of course, a frequency and a vibration. And so I find that to be very powerful in the sessions as a facilitator for people to really dive into their heart too. It's just another level of vibration, and it is life-changing. It's life-changing. So I'm grateful to you. What is the best way for people to find you, to find your studio? What's the best way for them to do that and engage?
They're all pretty easy. They all sound the same. The website is shantisoundaz.com.
Okay.
There's another URL, shantisound.us, so that hopefully I can use that as I move into other markets.
Yeah.
Instagram is shantisoundaz. Facebook is shantisoundaz. The website has the weekly schedule from week to week. There's a tab called What's Happening on the website where you can see all of the events that are coming up, with buttons that you can click right in there to sign up. And I'm always available for questions and advice. And
Great.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Cary. Like I said, you have such beautiful, kind, loving, gentle energy. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I feel you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for helping the world. Thank you for waking up and remembering who you are and what you bring to the beauty that you bring to this world, because it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank all of you for being here as well. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I feel like there's so much that can be learned and help us on our path to grow here with this information. So I encourage you to engage. I encourage you to investigate and see what works for you. You can find more information, of course, at my website, TammyTuesday.com. And if you are listening, we are on YouTube, so you can tune in and watch these videos as well. I will include all of Cary's information in the description below, so you can access her website and ways to engage with her. Always sending you all with lots of love and light. And remember, life, love, and purpose, it all begins with you. Peace out.